Hey everybody, welcome to today's story. Actually, this is not working. I think everything should be working. It's been a mad week with a couple of silver linings, and we're going to get into the whole story. We're going to talk about sovereign wealth funds, gold panic, gold missing perhaps. Could it hit Bitcoin? We'll talk about the biggest hack ever and rollbacks, jet lags, new filings, is partnering dead, how to get rich slowly, and so much more. This is kind of the recap of the week. Thank you, Andy. The Australians are up. Wow, amazing. And thank you, TND Tesla, Sean Donnelly, K8, all for being here. The whole gang is here. And it's so good to see everybody. And disclaimer, I'm just a guy on the internet and not financial advice. And shout out to Patreon as well. Make this all possible from Grace McNamara. Thank you. And I'm going to join Patreon. Mad if I don't put my student enriching hat on. Good. We share a lot so we can survive the future, which is going to be very different to anything the world has ever seen before. But let's get into a little bit of history. We had the worst day ever in 2025. It was nasty yesterday. Red across the board. This is a little chart. And $930 billion was wiped from the US S&P 500 in one day. Again, worst day of 2025. And there are many reasons for this. I've been very worried about macroeconomic concerns, policy uncertainty, tariffs. Markets hate uncertainty. And US stocks feared on other stuff like softening demand, bad retail numbers, inflation numbers. It's just not much good out there. But there are a couple of silver linings, and we'll get into that too. First of all, we talk about the Bitcoin black hole, because Bitcoin, despite it being a horrible week, is up 1.26% for the week since I was here last Saturday. Not bad. Let's check out the Bitcoin black hole. The Bitcoin ETFs now hold $112 billion worth of Bitcoin. Now, January started a little bit fast, and then it's been real slow. But hopefully, and I believe it's very achievable, that these ETFs will add another $40 billion to their kitty, which will take us to about $150 billion, give or take. And we know Michael Saylor's going to stack. We know he's going to announce on Monday, because he did a new CBO, convertible bond offering, to the tune of about $2.3, $2.4 billion, which will add about 20,000, 21,000, 24,000 Bitcoin, depending on the OTC desk price. It's happening. The stacking is happening. ETFs will slow down. More money will come in, and that will take us to at least $120,000 or more, $150,000 if things continue at this rate. So people are losing hope, but they shouldn't, because every technical indicator and every data point I see is positive, including this. This is David Sachs from the All In Pod. It looks cold there in DC, but David Sachs was asked by this lady on CNBS, and she's one of the good ones, by the way. But basically, could Bitcoin be included in America's sovereign wealth fund? And David Sachs said that decision rests with Howard Lutnick. Meanwhile, his strategic Bitcoin reserve is one of his priorities for the team. So there's two things to break down here. Is one, Howard Lutnick is a hardcore Bitcoin bull. He personally has hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin. His firm, Cantor Fitzgerald, manages the Tether bag of Bitcoin, which is about 65,000 Bitcoin. And it couldn't be more positive. He's now the Commerce Secretary as well. Trade in Bitcoin could be happening soon. But the 2 points of this little interview that came out that were quite striking is one, David Sachs is researching the SPR, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, which is not part of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And David Sachs kicked it over to Howard Lutnick to approve Bitcoin being part of the Sovereign Wealth Fund for the US. I can guarantee you, Howard Lutnick will say yes to Bitcoin for the US Sovereign Wealth Fund. And David Sachs will do all he possibly can to try to push this through the government to get a SPR. But it doesn't matter, because the states are doing it anyway, most probably. And a lot of people thought this was never going to happen, it's going to be impossible. But now Montana joins in. And if fully approved, that would take effect on July 1st, granting the state treasurer the authority to allocate $50 million into the special fund by July 15th. They'll have 2 weeks to buy $50 million of Bitcoin. And the recent amendment would change, I think they're holding through a qualified custodian or whatever, or through a spot ETF. It doesn't matter what form it takes, to be honest. And Montana becomes the 4th U.S. state to advance a Bitcoin reserve bill to the House. I think the others are Utah, Arizona, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma is one of the states I haven't been to. There's only 2 states I haven't been to in the United States. I think it was North Dakota and Oklahoma. One day, I hope to knock those 2 off my bucket list. If anybody wants to join me, let's do a road trip. Thank you, Chris. And who else did I miss? Hopefully nobody else. Let's get into more of the story, because there's more. Now, this is also the week where Fidelity Bitcoin ETF beat the Grayscale bag. Remember, Grayscale started with 640,000 Bitcoin. Now they have under 200,000. They bled 460,000 Bitcoin in a year. Madness. And not only that, but a ton more was absorbed into all of the other ETFs as well. So Grayscale will continue to bleed out slowly but surely. Now, there's other stuff happening behind the scenes, which is kind of tricky to understand, but there's some weird stuff going on with gold. And I don't talk about gold unless it impacts Bitcoin. So trust me, this does. First of all, Trump says he's going to, I'll blow this up so you can see it, he's going to visit Fort Knox in Kentucky to inspect the nation's gold reserve amid a push from Elon Musk and Republicans to review the facility, which has not been audited in my lifetime, or a little bit shorter, since 1970 or whatever. But I think Trump said if he's actually going to do this, he's excited to do it. He's heard about it his whole life. We've all heard about Fort Knox. Sounds like a fantastic place. But I'm wondering how you can even audit that. If they have as much as they say, and they're big piles of gold, piles and piles of gold, you nearly have to take everyone out and somehow either weigh it very precisely or do spot tests to make sure it's real. It's not a gold brick, painted gold, or a gold-plated lead bar. I don't know what they're going to do, but there's some weird panics going on right now in the market. If it's found out that not all the gold is there, that will basically put a pin, I believe, in the gold bug's dreams. Or it could do the opposite. It could make gold even scarcer because it doesn't actually exist. It's like a fantasy rock. Who knows? A moon rock or something. But this is interesting. Shout out to our friends in London. A guy called David Jensen has been analyzing the amount of gold on the move and the amount of gold in London's gold market. So let me try to break this down because it is a bit tricky with a lot of numbers. But New York's gold vaults have sucked in 16 million ounces, which is 500 tons in just 9 weeks. Gold lost 181 tons in the last 2 months, 36% of New York's gain. But London claims to have 280 million ounces, but most isn't free to sell because some is held by the central bank and the royal family. I don't know how it works over there, to be honest. But the point is, gold borrowing costs are now up 12% from 2%, showing there's hardly any available. Okay, and with 400 million ounces in contracts, but only 280 million ounces that are real, supposedly, and maybe a lot less than that, the analogy is like a candy store with... the easy way to think about this is, imagine you have a candy store that's supposed to have 280 tons of chocolate. Somebody takes out 4% of that chocolate, and there's panic because there's nothing left on the shelves. So in my little mind, I'm trying to play this out. What happens if Fort Knox doesn't have any gold? What happens if London doesn't have any gold? Why is the US all of a sudden over the last 9 weeks bringing so much gold over? And this could bring about kind of a run on the bank per se. Maybe the gold isn't there at all. Maybe it's been funneled out over years. Maybe it's sitting somewhere else. Maybe people are turning it all to jewelry. I don't know. But the reason I care is because what happens if these are big houses of cards? What are people going to do? They're going to hedge. And they're going to hedge with what? They're going to hedge with gold 2.0, which is called Bitcoin. That's why I care. Let's see if this happens. Either way, something's going to break in the coming months. something is going to break. All this gold uncertainty that people thought was a safe thing that's totally unverifiable may not be safe after all. We'll come to another thing that may not be safe too as well. During this very red, nasty week, we had the biggest hack ever. Like literally, when it rains, it pours, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Bybit. Covered it briefly yesterday. 1.46 billion. Yesterday, I reported 1.4 billion. It's actually supposedly higher. And that's 16% of all previous hacks combined. It was massive. And while everybody is terrified, absolutely terrified about quantum computing, it's social engineering that caused the whole thing. It's apparently the only way you can get the type of information to pull from these cold storage wallets within Bybit. Inside job, somebody had leaked the signer list, social engineering. They studied emails and behaviors. They spoofed them. They compromised devices. And one or more signers were infected with the malware, which means, everybody, they've done it once. They can do it again. Multi-sig on ETH is no longer safe, which actually is surprising because the ETH price is holding up okay. Not too bad at all. And Lazarus in North Korea were apparently the folks behind it. And now they have an Ethereum, $1.5 billion strategic Ethereum reserve for the country. So we were hoping for Bitcoin strategic reserves. North Korea beat everybody to the punch. Sorry, tongue in cheek on this one. Trying to be a little comedic during these very serious times. And Lazarus, not only did they steal nearly $1.5 billion in ETH, they're already converting it into different assets. This here shows you how much they're converting slowly into Bitcoin. It's going to take time for them to do all that, but they're going to make it move somehow and obfuscate it, hide it, and it's big. It's very big. Now, when this happened, I think before in 2017, 2018, I don't remember the exact history of ETH, but there was a rollback. And now a couple of so-called experts in the space, you could say, Samson Mao insists on Ethereum rollback after Bybit's $1.4 billion hack. And Arthur Hayes tells Vitalik Buterin to roll it back too, because we already voted no on immutability in 2016. Hayes said on X. But remember, as far as I'm concerned, decentralization results or relies on trust in the system, not in people. If a rollback happens and enough people complain, users can't rely on the chain's integrity, and faith will shift to who is the loudest voice or has the most power at the time. And this is a real crazy issue. If ETH does a rollback, it proves a couple of things. One, it's not decentralized. Two, the whole thing is BS and the thing should just implode. I can't believe these two are actually asking for a rollback. That's not how decentralization should work. Anyway, I'm wondering, do these folks actually have exposure to this hack? Or they shouldn't even care. They shouldn't even own Ethereum, but maybe they do. And this is why it's so important, because this is the fundamental principle of crypto. That's why I'm spending so much time on this hack thing, because it's interesting. Now, we have a little bit of jet lag, or jet lag, ETH lag, whatever you want to call it. So the future was very exciting for Ethereum back in 2017, 2020. What they did was incredible. And Web3 Vision had a very compelling growth path for Ethereum. The problem is today's reality is very different, and we are not seeing many large-scale applications driving any network activity, substantial network activity, despite all the layer 2s, etc. And the result is Ethereum remains correlated to Bitcoin, but it shows a very asymmetric pattern with very limited upside. During a huge move for Bitcoin up nearly 500%, Ethereum is up only 100%, which is not good. Now, shout out to Marty Party, friend of the channel, DCA member. And he says, and the big thing about this is ETH was always called. I remember the last couple of years, I've been kind of warning people that the numbers don't add up. It's a completely overvalued based on activity and revenue and adoption and users and transactions and all fees. It's just not there. So if you watch this channel for the last 4 years, you would have seen all my data. And I'm not dinging Ethereum. But what I am dinging is now, the one thing that Ethereum had going for it was security, okay? It was the most secure chain. When TradFi comes into crypto, they're going to build on Ethereum, real-world assets, Ethereum, tokenization, Ethereum, etc. That is not happening, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody just stuck a big pin, shout out to the Lazarus Group in North Korea, into Ethereum because of this. And this is from Marty Party. I thought it was quite profound. Sell all ETH into SOL and SUI as they try to prop up ETH. ETH is the biggest risk to crypto. It's old, it's clunky, it's broken, and can't be trusted to hold value. Reminder, everybody, not my words, Marty Party's words. I'm repeating his words with his permission, okay? I want to make that very clear. You know my data for the last 4 years, so I don't need to repeat that. But this hack will simply be duplicated again and again until all the L2 multisigs are compromised. The programming language of Ethereum is Solidity, and it was designed as an academic experiment. We know about academic experiments in crypto as well from other chains, which I will not mention here. I will in a few minutes, though. It is not safe and has led to 80% of the exploits since 2016, and Bybit is just another example of advanced form of Solidity exploit, and Solana and SUI use proper programming languages like Rust and Move, which are bulletproof. So, make of that what you will. Can't say you haven't been warned. It's crazy. And I know as well, the other reason I spending so much time on this, because it's so important, is people are losing faith in crypto. Okay? People who came in late, people who are top buyers, people who don't have very low cost bases, and they see things stagnant or things go down or proxies fall down or Bitcoin outperforming, say, Solana over the last year. Yeah, it hurts for some people. So I understand. But this is an interesting perspective from an Ethereum person, Harterium. If you think crypto is scary, try working 40 years without being able to save anything and then retire with nothing at the age of 70. I know of people in this situation, okay? And this is forcing people out the risk curve into very risky assets. So they don't have much to begin with and they end up losing even more. So take everything I say here with a grain of salt. This video is turning out to be much deeper than I expected it to be. Apologies for that. But again, I'm not going to sugarcoat stuff that needs to be heard. You guys make your own decisions, and gals, of course, too. Let's talk about Chain Compare for a second. Quick check-in on the activities, daily activities. Solana 5.4 million daily active users, down from the 8 million a few weeks ago, but still large. Near is number 2, and SUI has jumped to number 3 at 1.4 million. Aptos 1.1, Base, etc. Aptos jumped over Base, by the way. Polygon still hanging in there. It's funny, Polygon, Ethereum, and Bitcoin all approximately have the same amount of users. And back in the day, Ethereum had a lot more users than Bitcoin. Now Bitcoin is about to surpass Ethereum, and we know the on-chain activity on Bitcoin is next to nothing. So that's really saying something there, ladies and gentlemen. And shout out to Cardano for 29,000 users for participating. Solana has nearly 200 times that, and Solana does 1,200 times the amount of transactions. So anyway, it's just data. Ignore the data, if you will. Other news on Solana, because that is a chain where everything is happening. That's why we talk about it. Breaking news, Franklin Templeton filed an S1, which is for a Solana ETF as well. And they are a $1.5 trillion money runner. Fidelity is about $3.5 trillion. Schwab is about $4.5 trillion. BlackRock is nearly $12 trillion. $1 trillion is a lot of money. So if people sometimes hear, oh, it's only a $1.5 trillion shop, that's massive, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, they'll be telling their clients to allocate to Solana as well. And yes, Solana is cheap. And yes, so is Tesla. And that's a wonderful time to be alive. So consider it a gift, not financial advice. And the probability of a Solana ETF being approved in 2025 is now 84%, down a bit off the 85%, but super close. And the trend is up. It's basically a foregone conclusion. When Polymarket says something is more than 80% lock, you can literally take it to the bank. Not a problem. Especially with people like, let's roll up the screen here, David Sachs. He's going to make it happen. He knows what's up. And he understands technology. So Franklin Templeton will be in. In other news too, Solana Mints $8 billion in 2025. I got to do the Austin Powers thing, which I learned on this channel in the last year or so. Apparently it's a very old movie, but $8 billion in 2025 so far. Minted USDC on Solana by Circle. That's big. And so continues to explode upwards. Remember, the more minting of a stablecoin, the more money there is to play in crypto. And yes, the prices are weak. So you know the prices are now. We got Bitcoin hovering in this tiny, tight range all day, 96.6 to like 96.8. It is so narrow. It's incredible. It's just manipulation. We know what's happening. Be careful out there. Be careful with leverage. Now, switching gears to AI, because everything is related. ChatGPT they're boasting their 400 million weekly active users. But when you dig into the numbers a little bit, it's not that impressive. Yes, it's grown, but it's about to shrink because it's no longer the best AI LLM in town. Grok 3 is from Elon Musk. And revenge is very sweet for Elon right now. But the crazy thing about this 400 million weekly active users, only 2 million pay. That's tiny amount of conversion. What is that, half of 1%? Ridiculous. So anyway, that's going to shrivel up too, as people will cancel their subscriptions and move elsewhere to a better solution. And speaking of Elon Musk and Tesla, the new Cybercab job postings are everywhere. Austin, Texas. They're building, they're assembling, and they're going to be launching soon too. This is a live picture I took at the We Robot event, one of many. I have a video inside the car too. But I like this car from behind. It's so special because there's no rear view window. But the question is, would you buy one? Or would you buy a fleet of them? I'm getting that question a lot these days. How do we get one? Will we be able to buy one? Everything that Elon has said, yes, if you have like a AI4, Model Y, Model 3, Cybertruck, I think you're going to be able to put them on the network. Will you be able to buy these? I think the fleet will initially be closely managed by Tesla for safety reasons. And then over time, they're going to scale to 2 million units a year. And then, of course, people will be able to buy them. But it could be interesting. If you can buy a car for $25,000 and it makes you $30,000 a year and it runs for 1 million miles, why not? Why not? If you got 10 of them, you're retired easily with a very good life. And partnering, a lot of people are saying, no, Tesla's going to partner with Uber because Uber is the king. Well, no, they're not. And I said this for a long time. There's no point. There's nothing that Uber can bring to the table. In fact, if Uber were to partner with Tesla, they'd actually be cannibalizing their own teams, workforce, etc. And Tesla will be going it alone. And that is kind of confirmed here from Sawyer Merritt and what we all thought. Tesla does not need Uber. Tesla will cannibalize Uber starting in Austin, just as we saw the cannibalization of Lyft in San Francisco by Waymo, which of course can't scale either. Madness. Anyway, and a quick fun story of the day, a reminder of how to get rich slowly. And shout out to all the people that work at Costco. I actually met, shout out to Ricardo if he's listening. Ricardo worked at Costco, and now he is a plumber, and he's making a lot more money plumbing, believe it or not, than working at Costco. But he has his stock from years ago. And the cool thing about this story is if you got in early, back in the 90s or a little bit before that, say over the last 35 years, you made nearly 16,000%. And I know it doesn't look like a lot, but the point of this slide here is to share what exponentiality looks like slowly, how to get rich slowly. If you can have the gumption to hold on to a Costco bag for 35 years, you have made a fortune. A small allocation of a couple of $1,000s becomes millions. And what's crazy about this chart, even though it goes vertical, the CAGR is only 14.92% per year. But you got to be patient. 30 years, 35 years, and then you have life-changing money. But the people that swap in and out of winning assets is kind of like, dangerous. Imagine selling all of this in the 90s and moving into a .com web van company or something that went to zero. Instead of holding, you lost everything. So that's kind of like the quick little moral of the story, which is important for you all to recognize. Now, getting back to money and gold colors and melting ice cubes, Warren Buffett's cash pile hits a new record, $325.2 billion, debasing at 14% per year. Yeah, he makes a little bit of treasury interest, 3.5% or whatever, but that's taxed. So I don't know where it's going to go. But the point is, either he's waiting for something big to blow up, or they can't find things priced the way they want them, like banks and insurance companies, which I think are all going to not do too well in the future, despite the fact the rates are up. Analyzing the Warren Buffett investor letter, which is fascinating. But the point is, CPI reminder keeps on going up, which means debasement keeps on going up. The only time that CPI ever dips is during nasty recessions. If you look back at this chart, there's two big ones that jump out. One is 2009, global financial crisis. And number two is 2020, C19, launch time. So remember, CPI is up only. So be careful holding on to cash long term. Because of this final meme of the day, they will keep printing. Buy Bitcoin. And people always hear about the $100 trillion figure. And this is $1,000 trillion, but typically the $100 trillion figure refers to speculative predictions about Bitcoin's future market cap, because it's cap supply of 21 million coins. And if Bitcoin reaches a $100 trillion market cap, each Bitcoin will be worth about $4.765 million. A lot of people believe it's going to happen. Maybe a lot more. But the point is, fiat is going to zero. Bitcoin is scarce. That's why I obsess about it. Thank you all for coming. Hope you like the show. Hope you learned something new every minute. And thank you to the over 4,000 people watching live. Thank you to Sean Donnelly and TND Tesla and K8 and Chris and the whole gang. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you tomorrow for the big Q&A. Have a good night.